Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Hello, travelers. PA Nightmares here. I've noticed that over 30% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So, if you're a new or a returning viewer and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you like what I do, liking the video and commenting as well, as it really helps push this video into the algorithm and it really does help the channel grow. Well, I've taken enough of your time. On to the main event. My Favorite Christmas, narrated by 242 Reads, written by Were-Aline.
Growing up, Christmas was always my favorite holiday. My parents had divorced when I was little, but it had always been amicable between them. My mom and dad had set visitation schedules and stuff like that, but were always understanding if things came up and the times or days had to be changed. It wasn't like so many divorces you hear about, where one person hates the other or uses the kid as a pawn. My parents simply fell out of love. They functioned much better as best friends and co-parents than they did as spouses. I loved Christmas because even though my parents got along, it was one of those rare times they would come together, and it felt like we were a whole family. It was our tradition that I would spend Christmas at one parent's house, and the other parent would come over for Christmas morning, and we would all open gifts together. We even took family photos, and if we were at my mom's house, we would even decorate Christmas cookies. As the years went on, little things changed. My parents met new people. They formed new relationships. There were breakups, new introductions, moves. But the one thing I knew I would always look forward to was spending Christmas with my parents. Eventually, my dad remarried to a very nice woman, but my mom wasn't nearly as lucky. I think I was about 8 the first time she introduced me to Kyle. Kyle was a few years older than my mom, but you wouldn't have been able to tell by the way he acted. He enjoyed drinking and going out. I'm sure people would have thought of him as the life of the party. It didn't take long before Kyle and my mom moved in together, and it took even less time before I noticed the first bruises on my mom. I had come back from staying the weekend at my dad's when I walked in her room as she was taking her jacket off. Deep purples and greens swirled from the base of her neck to across her shoulders, and when I asked her about it, she told me she had fallen. Being a child and prone to bruising myself, I never thought to prod any deeper than that. Slowly, my mom changed from the bright and vivacious woman I had known my entire life to an empty shell. Even my dad noticed and offered her a place to stay while she got back on her feet. But for some reason, anytime Kyle would call or show up with flowers, she'd pick up and go right back to where she was. This went on for years. In between the breakups and makeups, Kyle had somehow convinced my mother to marry him. Looking back on it, I'm sure it was so he could control her even more than he did already at that point. And I wonder how much choice she really had in it. The whole wedding thing wasn't even a wedding. I went to spend a weekend with my dad, and while I was gone, they went to the courthouse. When I came back, their marriage certificate hung on the wall where my mom used to hang my school photos. I was 12 then. Once they were married, Kyle got even worse. I was already used to them fighting, him hitting her, the tears and threats. But nothing could have prepared me for when he first noticed me. It was a week before Christmas and only a few days before I was supposed to go visit my dad. Mom had run to the store and Kyle was chest deep in a bottle of whiskey. I, like usual, was walled up in my bedroom. He was out in the living room watching wrestling and screaming at the TV. I assumed my mom was home when I heard a bottle break against the living room wall. I laid in my bed wondering how many security deposits we had lost because of him and the damage he thrived on creating, when the handle to my bedroom door started shaking. With one loud thud, the door was suddenly crumbling under Kyle's weight. Kyle stood 6'5" and a good 280 pounds. The cheap apartment door never stood a chance, and neither did I. Before I could even scramble off the bed, Kyle had a fistful of my hair and was dragging me through the apartment to the living room. He threw me against every piece of furniture and wall he could as he made his way back to the couch. He had forced himself on top of me as my mom came walking through the door. She ran in screaming and managed to kick Kyle in the face. I scrambled out from under him and ran outside the apartment. I could hear screaming and crying, furniture breaking, and Mom's wails as I called my dad. By this point, he was so used to my phone calls, he didn't even bother asking what happened, before telling me he'd be over to get me as soon as he could. The din of the apartment quieted down, and my mom came outside. She pulled me to a hug and ruffled my hair and made me swear to never tell my dad what happened. She whispered a promise to make everything better, and her eyes gleamed with a fire I had never seen before. When my dad arrived, she briefly pulled him aside and asked him to keep me until his normal scheduled time to have me. Dad never minded when I had to spend more time with him, especially when I extended my holiday visit, so he told her that would be fine. We had gotten back to my dad's house when the phone started ringing. It was my mom, letting us know that Kyle had left the house and she was planning on divorcing him. The neighbors had apparently called the police when they heard the fighting that night, and they were once again taking Kyle away. Mom also decided to let us know that because of the police investigation and meeting with the divorce lawyers, she wouldn't be able to make it over for Christmas. I think she could tell I was heartbroken. No matter what happened, how bad life was, we always spent Christmas together. She promised that she would mail my gift to my dad's house, and as a compromise, she offered to do a second Christmas at her apartment once everything with Kyle died down. I remember I went to bed crying that night, crying because of what Kyle did and what he tried to do, and crying as I mourned the loss of our long-held tradition. Dad tried to comfort me the next few days, but I quietly kept secret everything that happened just like I had promised my mom. Dad had no idea what was running through my mind, and did the best he could to try and cheer me up with hot chocolate, cookies, and other fun, spirited treats. As the days went on, I slowly disassociated from what happened and began to grow excited about the gifts my mom would be sending me. And I even allowed myself to daydream about how quiet the apartment would be since Mom was leaving Kyle. It was Christmas Eve when the gift from my mom arrived. It was a decent-sized box, probably the size of a large shoebox, wrapped heavily in brown paper and tape. I was so excited that my dad decided to let me open it then and there. I carefully cut through the wrapping to reveal a damp and stained cardboard box. Merry Christmas was written on it in what looked like dark red finger paints. My heart sank as I lifted the lid of the box and a foul odor escaped. I looked up at my dad and his wife and saw their faces contour in abject horror as I finished pulling the lid off the box. My dad swooped down and grabbed the box from me, and his wife rushed over and pulled me into a hug. They tried to shield me, but I still managed to get a glimpse of what was in the box. It wasn't until the police were interviewing me that I started processing what my mom had sent me. It was Kyle's hands, lopped off at the wrist and wrapped in tissue paper. My dad had called 911 immediately, and later at my mom's trial, I learned the full extent of what happened. The night Kyle attacked me, the neighbors had never called the police. My mom told my dad that to keep me away from the house. While I was waiting outside for my dad, she had managed to beat Kyle to death with one of the lamps from the living room. He was already dead when my dad got there. My mom had absolutely snapped. She chose to endure his abuse, but something inside her broke when she came in and saw him on top of me. His body lay in the house until the package was delivered to me and my dad called the police. Mom had gutted Kyle with a piece of broken bottle laying around from his previous outbursts. She had taken his intestines and draped them across the Christmas tree. His chestnuts were roasting over an open fire of our grill on the back deck, and his hands were sent to me, as a way to prove he could never lay a hand on me again. Mom was able to successfully use an insanity defense, which means we now spend Christmas visiting her at the state mental hospital. It's not the same. We don't bake cookies when we visit her anymore. We do get family photos, and sometimes the hospital allows visitors to bring gifts. I still haven't figured out how to thank her for giving me the gift of safety, or how to tell either of my parents that year was my favorite Christmas ever.
I would like to thank tonight's author or authors for allowing me to use their works. If you enjoyed this, the authors' links will be in the description below. Please check them out and let them know PA sent you. Also, if you like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the links to my merch store, my website, and all of my other social medias will be in the description below. As always, I'd like to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. All of their names will appear on screen. I'll make sure to put all their links in the description below so you guys can check them out as well if you'd like.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.